How a Silverado is Made by Scott James. The Silverado began on a piece of paper just like any other great idea. After the idea has been processed, the sketch is generated into an AutoCAD drawing. This program is very powerful and can be very useful for mechanical engineers. After the initial CAD drawing is made, the final 3D model is computer generated. GM offers a wide assortment of gas and diesel engines in their Chevy Silverado and GM Sierra trucks. These engines are brought into the GM assembly plant on a metal pallet and placed on the front of an engine and transmission assembly line. This photo shows the gas engine, which is waiting to be placed on the production line. This photo shows the diesel engines that are waiting to be placed on the production line. Every engine that is brought into the plant is inspected by a robot with an infrared camera and lasers to ensure the engine meets GM specifications. GM chassis are assembled upside down and then flipped right side up. After the chassis are flipped, they get their engines and transmissions installed. Here we can see a suspended engine coming from the engine and transmission line on an overhead conveyor and the truck's chassis coming in on a ground level conveyor. Two GM team members then carefully lower the engine and transmission into the truck's chassis. Once the truck's chassis has its engine, transmission, radiator, and tires, it travels to the upper level via a vertical conveyor. As the chassis are being assembled, the truck's cabs are being welded by a small army of robots. These robots are programmed to precisely cut and weld the sheet metal together. Quality control is another aspect of production that is now assisted by automation. Once the truck's cabs have been welded by the robot production line, they are inspected in a closure by a set of robotic infrared cameras and lasers. This process ensures that every weld is within GM's tolerance before allowing the truck cab to continue down the assembly line. Once all the quality inspections are complete, the cab ventures down the trim line. The trim line is where all of the interior of the cab is installed. The truck's instrument panels, also known as IPs, are brought onto the production line already assembled and ready to install. The only thing missing are the steering wheels. To install the instrument panels, a GM team member uses a robotic control arm and guides the IP into the truck's cab. Once the IP is in the cab, a GM team member immediately goes to work fastening the instrument panel and making all the necessary connections. It approximately takes 2 minutes to install the IP. While the trim is being installed into the cabs, the doors are being installed on the door line. Here you can see the different colors and styles of the interior. The bed line is another production line that is being assembled while everything else is going on. Here is where the tail lights and the tailgate is assembled to the bed of the truck. Once the cab and bed are completely assembled, a robotic arm will grab the cab and the bed. Then the robot will carry the two pieces onto the engine and transmission. There are robots underneath the carrier which assemble the truck together. Once the truck is married together, the truck travels to the next production line, which is the final line. On the last leg of the assembly line, external sheet metal and components are installed to complete the truck. Here we can see GM team members installing a front hood. First, the hood was lifted off of a pallet using a robotic arm, and then two GM team members guide and install the hood by hand. Here we can see the installation of a front bumper. Just like the hood, the bumper is lifted off of a pallet using a robotic arm and then guided onto the front of the truck. Once all the hardware and components are installed, the final decals are installed. At the end of the final line, a final inspection is set in place to look for any scratches, dings, and dents. The completed truck drives about 50 feet to the emissions test area. The trucks are tested to ensure they pass the government mandatory emissions level along with a series of other quality control tests. After being assembled and tested, the trucks drive onto the care line. Under a few hundred feet of extreme bright light, the trucks are inspected from bumper to bumper for anything that doesn't meet GM quality control standards. The care line is essentially another assembly line with stations where GM team members inspect a specific area of the truck. 300 brand new Chevy and GMC trucks leave the plant every shift.